What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, February 20th, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, it's a party in the BSC this weekend. All teams won. There was no losers whatsoever. This might be the first time we've ever had this on the podcast in the almost 2 years we've been running it.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be hard we'd have to really dig into our history and go back and look at a lot of things. I mean, it's kind of unfair during the summer when just the Bisons are playing. I mean, maybe they won a couple in a row, but as far as multiple teams playing, it may have happened before, but I'm not sure. But since we started covering the Beauts, it is the first time that it has happened where we had 4 victories, Bandits, Sabres, and 2 Beauts, back-to-back wins, first time all year. Pretty exciting weekend.
So remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, we'll start with the Buffalo Bandits. Holy cow, what a game. That is what I would call a gutsy victory, if there was any, based on everything that happened before and during the game. I mean, they took on Philly, won 13-12 in overtime. Smith had 5, McCulley had 4, McKay had 3, and Buchanan had 1. So scoring 13 and only 4 scorers scored. Unbelievable. Vince, once again, incredible in the second half. 40 saves. Shots were 54-52 in favor of the Bandits. Faceoffs were 20-8 in favor of Philly. Buffalo was 3 for 4 on the power play, and Philly was 2 for 4.
Yeah, it was a crazy win. I mean, going into it, we knew it was going to be a little bit tougher than the last time they played Philly, with Mitch Jones coming into town for Philly. They were going to be a little bit stronger on offense, and the Bandits' offense themselves, we talked about their depth that they've been able to pull out with just the increasing injuries that they have continued to get, and how they've been able to find scoring from pretty much anywhere. But this game is about as bad offensively as it could have possibly gone with the in-game injuries. There's not much you can do with that as far as on-the-fly adjustments. I mean, yes, obviously the Bandits were able to make some on-the-fly adjustments. I mean, you have to kind of plug and play what you can, but not only does losing offensive players hurt, especially when your offense is already this banged up, but at the same time, losing players hurts. It gets your team exhausted. Other players are playing where they are not used to playing, but in general, you're just missing those subs. So that's 2, I think throughout the game, it was 2, maybe 3 at times, guys that you're missing from your bench that you simply cannot get these substitutes in, and all of a sudden you're just missing those players to even sub and just give your guys a little bit of a break. So by the end of the game, the Bandits are feeling gassed. Their offense is down to the bare bones that it can possibly be, and yet they were able to pull out a very, very gutsy win. It was an impressive win against a team with the record that Philly has. I don't think the record at this point is really telling as their season moves forward that they're going to be a little bit stronger of a team to kind of play against, but it was just an incredible win. The way they were able to pull it out, the way they were able to come together, going through that much adversity in the middle of a game, it is not easy to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, going in, you're down Josh Byrne, you're down Chris Cloutier, you're down Chase Frazier. I already know they're down. They're not coming back in this game. Then in the first, you lose Nanakoke. You lose Buchanan in the second half. He was shown on crutches at the end of the game.
Robinson?
You had Robinson, thank you. Ian McKay gets hit in the head. It looked like a headshot, a knee to the head, inadvertent. It wasn't on purpose or anything, but he goes out in the fourth quarter. That's just as gutsy of a win as you can. All the injuries seem to be coming on the forward group, but I mean, when you're down to just Buchanan and Dhane Smith as your 2 forwards who had a big impact on the team last year as the only ones left standing, you have to get goals elsewhere. I mean, McCulley stepped up in a huge way. I thought this was his best game as a pro. I thought last week's 2 weeks ago now, versus Rochester was his best game as a pro. Now this one by far is. I think Vince, I guess we can talk about Vince first. I thought he was very shaky in the first quarter especially, and it kind of led into the second quarter. But third and fourth quarter, and including overtime, is when big-time players show up to play, and he made up for the possible early mistakes, because I think it was his worst first half he's had all year. But as, the top goaltender in the entire NLL history has been known to do, he makes the adjustments and steps up big time when the team desperately needs him to.
Yeah, I don't think the defense was doing him too many favors. They were also playing a pretty rough first half. They were leaving guys wide open at times, but there were plenty that I think even Vince himself would absolutely want back. There were some that were kind of far out shots that he had a clear lane to see, and he just happened to let him go in. I mean, that one that ricocheted like 4 times and was about, one of the slowest goals we've ever seen go in a net in general, let alone past Vince. You're just kind of looking at a play like that and like, what just happened there? How it was going so incredibly slow. How did he not find that? But it was just a freak play. But that's kind of how the first half went for him. It was just little things that he seemed just off. And it's like you said, it's not really like him. But in that second half, he absolutely came through, including just one goal in the fourth. That is massive. I mean, this team's been a little bit shaky in the fourth. The third quarter, as we know, is their big one, and it was once again. But the fourth seems to be not quite as dominant as the third. Other teams have found a way to kind of fight back after that third quarter blowout the Bandits usually throw at them. But in this one, only allowing one in the fourth ended up being literally the game. And then overtime, I mean, we can talk about that, I guess, now. I'm really shocked that Philadelphia did not take an immediate timeout like the Bandits did. I really thought that the second they won, I mean, we expected them to win that overtime faceoff. No offense to Max Adler, but Baptiste is one of the best in the business, and he's out there to do what he does. He won the faceoff, and they didn't take a timeout. I thought that was very surprising for Philly not to take the timeout, because anything can happen in overtime, as we saw. Buffalo then got the ball, took a timeout. I don't know if drawing up their play, it just was Tavares writing Dhane Smith's name in, giant whiteboard all over the thing, circling it 10 times and saying, get it to Smith, and he's going to do what he's going to do, and he'll find a way to score, because that seemed to be the only game plan going into that after that overtime timeout, was just get it to Smith, and Smith just kind of took it upon himself, and Buchanan was in there trying to set a pick here or there, but it was pretty much all Smith finding a way to get into the net and score that goal. I mean, even who they had out there for the overtime, just that kind of shows you how depleted that offense was. I mean, Dylan Robinson was up there. They had, I believe, Kuznetsov was out there. I think they had McCulley and then Buchanan and Smith. That is just not going into this season. That's like the most ragtag group of overtime people I would expect on the field when you need a goal. But that's just who the Bandits are down to. And it's nothing against any of them, but they're just missing a lot of their key offensive weapons. But finding a way was what this game was all about. And seeing Smith score that goal, my goodness, is he really good.
Yeah, I know the NLL put out that 4-headed monster for the MVP. I think Dhane Smith saw that and went, I know he commented on it and said, hey, Connor Fields can have it. I'd rather have the MVP. I think he didn't, he wasn't trying to make a statement. He did exactly what his team needed to. And that's 5 goals, 5 assists, 10 points, game winner in overtime. And I think that proves what he is to this team and what he is to this league. And he's currently the MVP favorite, in my opinion. I don't really take a ton of thought processes into like this early on, who's the MVP race, what's it look like, who are the players. But I mean, I think he stands alone at the top. He is the true MVP of this league right now. He's the MVP of last year. He's coming in defending his championship and title in the MVP. He's just unstoppable. I mean, when you have Nanico go out, when you have Brandon Robinson go out, you don't already have Josh Byrne and you don't have Chris Cloutier. It's known who it's going to go to, who the offense is going to run through, and he had a hand in all but 3 goals. And he probably had a hand in those other 3 too. It's just he's not on the stat sheet for it. It's just he is the MVP in my mind. There's no clear second for now, for me at least. Nothing that I even care about, but the man is just unstoppable. It's unbelievable. Like I said, you know the ball's going to him in overtime. You know they're drawing it up, and they can't stop him, and he just scores anyways. It's an unbelievable, and I still think we take advantage of him sometimes, where it's just we assume he's going to be doing this. It's just how much it actually, how great he actually is.
Yeah, your buddy Teat would be, he's
pretty good.
He's also really, really good. He's another one that teams, literally one guy on the team in New York. No offense to New York, but they have one player that they pretty much have to stop, and he is yet to be found to stop. But it was a game like this that exactly what you're saying. I mean, the big difference between the two, we don't really have to get too deep into an MVP talk, but the big difference between like Smith and Teat is that Teat's team is terrible, and Smith actually has some pretty solid supporting castmates around him. But in a game like this is where you can easily see what an MVP looks like when your team is down this many players, and exactly what you just said. Not even the whole game, but that overtime alone, coming out of that timeout, Philadelphia knows the ball is going to one player. You have to double up, triple up, quadruple. I don't care what you have to do. You have to stop Smith from scoring and even shooting in that overtime. You cannot let him get near the net. You have to keep him to the outside. You cannot let him shoot. And instead, Smith gets it, beats a double team, gets inside, and then scores an incredible goal. I mean, it's just that kind of put your team on your back mentality that Smith has that makes him such a solid MVP candidate. Again, too early, like you said, to be really getting into it, and I know he doesn't care. We don't really care all that much either, but just what he means to this team and what he was able to do in a game like this where you're missing so many pieces, and like you said, only doesn't have a hand in 3 of the goals. It's just incredible what he is to this team, and no matter how many players goes out, he seems to find a way to step up even more in these situations.
Yeah, I know I hit it on briefly when we were starting this segment, but Brad McCauley, man, what a game. He was pretty much the lone survivor over on the left-hand side because everybody on the left-hand side just gets hurt anyway. So 4 goals, 5 assists, unbelievable what he's been able to do. He's just building momentum on that left-hand side. Like I said, the last known left-handed guy on that side. And it's quite impressive what he's got going for him right now. And he came into the season unhealthy. He missed game 1, and he's just taken over that role now. And seeing... who knows when Chris Cloutier is going to be back? Who knows when Dhane Smith or Josh Burns is going to be coming back? He's pretty much, and now Brandon Robinson's hurt too. You got Ian McKay's hurt. I'm just scrolling through all the left-handed side. I don't know what their plan is on the left with the lefties moving forward, but if Brad McCauley keeps it up, they have one less thing to worry about because they have a go-to guy. And I mean, all 4 of those goals he scored in different ways, and they were unbelievable. And he's becoming a threat on the power play as well.
I think the biggest thing with him is confidence. I mean, you saw it more in this game than I think we've seen it all season. I know it was obviously his best game, and like you said, he was last man standing. He had to step up. But throughout the season so far, I'm not saying that he hasn't been shooting or he, has had no confidence, but he seemed to play a similar role to Robinson where he was a little bit more the physical guy, finding lanes for a player like Byrne. But since Byrne's been out, he's been slowly gaining confidence in himself. And I think that kind of all culminated in this performance, not only how he was scoring, taking the shots he was, but that incredible goal that he had in front of the net where he had the extremely hard fake for the outside shot, cut inside, dove across the net. We haven't seen that from McCauley all season. It's just not something we've seen him do. We know he has it. We know he has that ability, but it's not something he's really been called upon to do, and it's not something I think he's just had the confidence to do. But when you're left as the only lefty to do anything over there, you just put himself, he was kind of forced into the situation to step up as much as possible. And that kind of move, I think, really showed the confidence that he was gaining as he's gone and as he's played, but even throughout that game.
Yeah, this was a big game of runs. I mean, it started being down 6-3 after the first quarter with a Wings 4-goal run, and then 5-3 for the Bandits in the third quarter, including a 4-goal run of their own. 3 of the final 4 goals in fourth quarter and overtime were the Bandits. This was another game of runs. The Bandits were able to withstand it. I think it was Bud Bailey that put out the tweet that the Buffalo Bandits since 2005, I think it was, have only come back from a 3-goal deficit after halftime 8 times. Well, mark this down for number 9. And I guess another toot to the horn of Kyle Buchanan. I had no idea he had 6 assists in this one until I looked at the stat sheet. He's just that quiet assassin on the field. He's just that hardworking guy who's always going to be putting in the effort, and it's unbelievable what he's able to do for this offense. And I mean, 1 goal, 6 assists is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's always going to be underrated. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. We've mentioned him how many times last year, how many times this year. He's the spark plug of the team, but just everything he does on the field. I know it doesn't go unnoticed by the players. It doesn't go unnoticed by the coaches, but outside of that little realm, which, I mean, those are the ones who matter most to probably him. He doesn't really care about anyone else as long as his teammates know, his coaches know. I think they understand how much he means to this team and what he does, but from just a basic outsider perspective, he's not known as one of the big guys on this team. He's not known as a big name on this team, but he deserves to be with the amount of hustle he has every single game. Like you said, 1 goal, 6 assists in a game where you're missing everybody. Those are key plays. And even just the way he battles after every single face-off, he's always one of the last guys off on offense. He was always in the face of the other team, allowing his defense to get on the field. He's just always out there, always hustling, always doing the little things. And I know his teammates understand that and his coaches understand that he's a big part of this team, but it goes very unnoticed, and sadly for his sake, I think it always will. No matter how many times it gets mentioned by us, by anybody, I think he's always just going to be kind of taking a back seat to some of the heavier hitters on offense. But what he does is very important. He's a key part of that offense, and I'm really glad they were able to bring him back this year.
I think the only other thing I gotta say is the defense was able to adjust and step up after first quarter very shakiness. I mean, I think it was Leclerc. Sam Leclerc, I believe his name is. Those 2 goals he had where he was just falling down, I don't understand what the defense was doing. I don't understand how both those goals were able to go in. Maybe they were just flukes or whatnot, but those kind of plays that we have seen from the defense so often lately this year, where they're just stumbling in the first quarter, stumbling in the second quarter, and then making those halftime adjustments where we've been trying to challenge this team where it's come out hot, figure it out, make the adjustments early on so you don't have to make these comebacks in the second half. I mean, I think it's been like 35 to 18. Let me double check that as I'm still talking here. But the second half adjustments that this team has been making on this game winning streak, it's right here. 4 straight second half comebacks. They've outscored the teams 36 to 15 in the second half during that 4-game stretch. It's what they're doing at halftime, but eventually they're going to have to figure it out for the first half so they don't have to keep making these comebacks, especially with the amount of players that are going down right now. I mean, because of the NLL, the system that they're in, they don't give specific injuries out. They don't give timelines or anything like that. They're making progress with these injury reports every Friday afternoon, which I love. It's a step in the right direction, but they still have a ways to go. It's going to be very interesting to see what this team looks like in 2 weeks.
Yeah, the defense, to me, the biggest thing, which I know it's literally a game plan of every single offense, so I'm not saying it's ever going to be flawless. It's something that is very difficult for the defense and easier for the offense to pull off. But the switches were still off in a lot of situations where 2 guys would either follow the guy who's going close to the net and leave a wide open outside shot as the player gets much closer than he was originally because nobody stepped up to him. But even in the second half or the first half, there were a lot of players left wide open in front of the net. And thank goodness half the time they weren't able to catch the ball. But 2 players would just run to one side and leave a guy wide open, and the switch-offs were just a little bit off in this game. And again, that's literally the goal of the offense. It's never going to be perfect. It's what they're out there to do. So for the most part, overall as a whole, I think the defense played fine. Like you said, they made the adjustments in the second half. I think they came out much better. They looked overall very good. It was just certain plays here and there that they were leaving players wide open, and thank goodness there were a few that Vince was able to stand on his head and make humongous saves, and there were others that the team, Philly, just kind of botched and had a guy wide open and weren't able to get it to him. But there were some breakdowns, but again, they happen every single game. So as a whole, I think they played very well, and it was interesting again to see just the defense struggles in a way that the offense was struggling, and it's not anything really to go with on the field, but defensive players ended up playing a lot more offense than they ever have and than they were used to because they had to play offensive shifts because the offense had nobody. So that in turn hurts your defense, who is, then playing either double shifts, triple shifts, or just playing with players maybe they aren't used to, that this guy normally plays on this side of the field, but this time he's not because he was just on offense. I mean, I know I mentioned it to our little group that when Robinson went down with his initial injury, how he came back out and then ended up on crutches, I don't know. The guy apparently is just a tank, but his original injury, it looked like Bomberry ended up playing a few forward shifts and kind of taking over that Robinson role of being that bigger-bodied forward on the left side trying to make lanes for McCulley. But again, then you have Bomberry, who is a known stay-at-home defender, now playing offense, so that leaves somebody else to play defense in his spot. And then you had Dylan Robinson also playing a few offensive shifts, again, leaving no one on defense. And then even Ian McKay, once again, playing pretty much all offense and no defense. So the offensive injuries also end up just taking out a bit of your defense and leaves them a little bit shorthanded as well. Not only being exhausted because players are playing way more than they are probably used to, but just also missing some of those combinations, and maybe some of the miscommunication happens when you're playing with guys a little bit different than you're used to seeing out there.
Yeah, so Phil, I have no idea what they're going to be doing next. I mean, who's going to step up next if none of these guys are healthy? If all these guys are out for an extended amount of time, I mean, there's been rumors Josh Byrne was going to be back for the Rochester game. And like I said, from that game forward, you never trust the player on what they say because it's basically a team call, and they'll work with the players. But I mean, when it comes to who's stepping up next, they got Sam LaRue down there. They got Joel Taylor down there. Do they make a trade to bring somebody in? Are they going to be going out and getting like a Cullen Monroe who knows the system, a Nick Miller who knows the system, one of those former draft picks? But it's going to be a very, I guess in this bye week, we just got to be hoping big time that they just come back healthy.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with where they're sitting and everything that's going on with their injuries, obviously they have to be able to field the team. They seem like they have enough bodies with the practice squad and healthy scratches to throw a team together, but the more they win, the more they can kind of sit back and make sure these players are healthy. I mean, obviously the East means a lot to Buffalo. You don't want to ever just kind of give up on it or anything like that, but the more they win, the further they continue to put themselves in a great spot to at least make playoffs in some way, shape, or form. And that is really the end goal here. And to make playoffs while having a healthy team is more important than winning anything during the season. So if Byrne, even after these 2 weeks, if he's, 90% and they want him 100, they continue to win and put themselves in a position where they can allow a lot of these players to heal up and make sure they are 100%, not risking any kind of re-injury that knocks them out for the rest of the season, and then they're done for playoffs as well. And then you're really in trouble where if they lost this game or they lose a few of these and their record's a little bit closer and you're starting to slip on playoffs, you might be forcing some of these players back because you need to make playoffs more than anything. But sitting at 8-2, I know Toronto won again. Rochester was off. So, I mean, everyone's still in great position in the East. Those top three are still battling it out right neck and neck. But more importantly, you continue to put yourself in a good spot for playoffs and then just allowing these players to get as healthy as possible for the end of season run.
So, Phil, the last thing I want to mention is, did you see the intermission between the third and the fourth quarter?
Of course I did. It was amazing. And
yeah, Rax has got some moves.
It's a little sad in the way that it's not, and it is like it's trying not to take anything away from what the Bandits do, because the whole year without them was pretty miserable, and I'm so incredibly thankful that they are back. They just add a little bit extra to this, and we missed them while they were gone. But seeing your mascot pull off those moves, it just really just takes it to a whole nother level. And what they do every single time they go out there is absolutely incredible and stuff I can't even fathom even coming close to doing ever. But then seeing your mascot pull off all these dance moves, it just elevates the whole thing to another level. And it was so much fun, so entertaining to watch, and it was really great. And I hope they bring him back for an encore performance.
Yeah, I think they debuted that at the perfect time. I mean, the Bandits were down by 1 goal entering that fourth quarter. They needed some kind of spark, and I think they got it by psyching up the fans, and the fans went absolutely bananas when they saw those moves.
Yeah, they loved it.
And we loved it also. So, Phil, another thing that I love is the BSC update here. I am up 1865.05 to 1643.22. I scored 40 points. You scored 38.5. So, thank you, Brad McCulley.
Yeah, I forgot you had him. I thought I was doing real well with Dhane Smith putting up those 10 points, and then McKay doing what he's doing best. Oh, congratulations to Ian McKay. I believe if the last article I wrote is accurate, which I think it is, he has officially eclipsed his personal best in goals in a season, and we are still a long ways from the end, so he's going to absolutely demolish his single season personal record for goals in a season. I believe he had 10. He was tied for his own with 10 or 11 going into this game. Now he has a hat trick, which obviously takes it above that, and he's going to likely continue to score. So congratulations to him. He is just a transition man on a mission, playing incredible, and has really stepped up in the absence of a lot of lefty forwards for the Bandits.
So, Phil, we did have some milestones happen in this one. Dhane Smith, he crossed and, is a pretty good lacrosse player, including all 900 career points he has now. He's just the third player in Bandits history to reach that number. Matt Spanger, he was was tied for 11th with Billy D. Smith with 49 caused turnovers. He had 3 in this one, so he's up to 9th place solo with 49. Congrats to him. Dhane Smith, he went from 54 assists to 59. That ties him for 10th most in single season for the Buffalo Bandits. There's still 8 games to go, Phil, and he was also only 7 points away from getting in the top 25 of points in a single season. With 80, he's up to 83 now. He's just really, really good. And again, 8 more games, and these are the records he's setting. It's disgusting, absolutely disgusting what he's able to do on the lacrosse field when he's pretty much the biggest threat, one of the only big time known guys on the offensive end, and the opponents just seem to not be able to do anything about it.
Yeah, he's really good. I don't know what else to say about Dhane Smith. I'm happy he's a Bandit, I guess, is the biggest thing we can say about him. Not even just, now he's a Bandit. He's been here for all 900 plus points of his career, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's going to probably be 900 more in his career.
We can
hope. Remember, didn't he start on the defensive end when he started his career too? It's just, God, he's so good. But they have a bye week this coming week, and then they fly out to San Diego for a Friday night game on the 3rd, I believe it is. The 3rd or the 4th. I think it's the 3rd. I don't know.
They play Halifax.
It's too far away. Yeah. It's
not San Diego.
Is it Halifax?
Yeah, I think it's a home and home against Halifax coming up.
You're right. It is Halifax. I apologize. Yeah, my brain is scattered. It's 2 weeks away. I don't have to worry about it yet. So, they got a bye week. Get healthy, everybody, because I've never seen an offensive unit get this hurt this quickly into a season. So just heal up, because there's literally nobody else that you can call up for the left-hand side to replace the guys that you literally already replaced. But we'll move on to the Buffalo Bandits. Buffalo Beauts. It's been a long weekend of winning, Phil. Beauts, like I said, they won both their games versus the Whitecaps. They kept their playoff chances, no matter how slim they are, alive. Saturday, they won 4-2. 2 goal scorers. Both had 2. Emma Newtonen and Michaela Grant-Mentis both chipped in 2 each. Bernston made 27 of 29 save shots, were 31-29 in favor of the Beauts. And then Sunday, the winning continued. They won 1-0. Yenna Suoko scored their only goal. Ridgewell made 31 saves to complete her first ever PHF shutout. Congrats to her. Recently signed back up with all the injuries to the goalie department that the Beauts have had. Shots were 31-25 in favor of the Whitecaps.
You are struggling a little bit there.
I am all over the place today, Phil. It's been a long weekend, like I said.
You also are looking for that Bandits bye week.
I am. I need a bye week myself.
But yeah, overall, the biggest thing we can say here is back-to-back wins for the first time in the entire season. Better late than never. And this, again, going into this series, it was not going to be one of the easier teams. I know we kept mentioning that the season kind of eases up a little bit now that Toronto and Boston are in the rearview mirror, but Minnesota was still a very good team, a humongous hockey town that they are, so this was still going to be a very tough battle. So to be able to win 2 of these and not just even take 1, it was still an incredible performance, and something that the Beauts, have been building towards. We've talked about it for a long time now that they've been doing these smaller things to kind of perfect their own game, working from the basic things out, getting to a little bit more complicated, and it's really starting to show and pay off. The shots in both games were much closer than we've seen in a while, but we can start with that 4-2 win. 4 goals, PK, 4. That right there is something we haven't seen much of. So, these 2 wins are just a lot of things we haven't seen much of. A shutout we haven't seen much of, and 4 goals, which just doesn't often happen. But the biggest way the goals seem to be coming were on odd man opportunities, really grabbing through the rush, using a lot of speed, and just the team looked like they were flying and playing with a lot more confidence than I think we've seen them really have a lot of the season.
Yeah, it did help that the Minnesota Whitecaps were down one of their star forwards and their starting goaltender, so you got the benefit of that at least. But you still have to go out there and perform against a team who was currently 3rd in the standings. MGM with Dobson, those line changes that the coaching staff made seems to be paying dividends now. They're finally gelling together. They've been able to stick well with these new lines, and they seem to be working well. MGM with Dobson, the quick give and go to take the 1-0 lead, which I thought was huge. Scoring first in both of these games put Minnesota on their heel. 46 seconds in, it was a great start. Like you said, lots of speed in this one. It seemed like in the Saturday game, Minnesota wasn't able to counteract the speed that the Buffalo Bandits came with, and they were just doing a good job of getting the puck out of their own end as well. Newton, she grabs the loose puck, goes down after the Minnesota players collide down the right-hand side, just roofs it. I mean, bar down, beautiful shot, gets her going. Then Minnesota put a ton of pressure in the final minutes of the first period. I mean, 11 total shots in the first one. They put pressure on it in the first and the third periods. It was towards the end of the periods that they were putting such pressure on, though. But they were moving their feet. They were drawing penalties. 3 power play opportunities. On the third one, Newton finally scores. She made a great move to get there around the defender, go in front of the net, and I still don't know how it squeaked through. If you had told me it didn't go in, I would believe you. If you had told me it did go in, I would believe you, because there was no conclusive evidence of the puck actually crossing the line. But I mean, I'll take it. And then I thought Healy running the power play point was a great decision by them as well, because she's so calm and was able to move the puck so well. And then it was credit to MGM. In the last minute, they had their goalie pulled for Minnesota. She made a great last second attempt to deflect the pass that was bound to go in the back of the net. And it was such a good play by her. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about the Sunday game. I got them both confused, but it was such a good, well put together game where I wasn't able to watch this one live because I was at the Bandits game, but I knew they won 4-2, so I came home and watched that game, right after, because I wanted to see exactly how they were able to pull this one off. I know we said going into this one that you wanted to try to play spoiler. I wasn't anticipating it, but they got it.
I think one of the biggest things we've been looking for all season is exactly the 2 players who scored. I mean, Newton and MGM are arguably the team's top forwards, whether they're on the same line or not on the same line, wherever they are. Those are the 2 most skilled players I think we would see on this team, and those are the 2 players you're looking to step up the entire season. And finally, they got their opportunities, and they really put it together in this game, 2 for each of them. I think that's just massive, that when your star forwards get going, the rest kind of trickles down from there and takes the pressure off of your secondary scoring. But that's when your secondary scoring has the opportunity to step up, because the pressure is not all on them. So when your top line or your top forwards are really getting going, that is when the rest of the team kind of falls into place. So to see them each get 2 in this one, not even just 1, I think that really just is great moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and first road win since February 6th of 2022, well over a year since their last road win, and they got it in a great way. And then moved to Sunday's game. It was such a different game than the first one, where Minnesota made the adjustments overnight, and they came in and were really trying to stifle the speed that the Buffalo Bandits were playing with, and for the most part, they did it. But hats off to both goaltenders. They kept both teams in it. And you can see that by the 1-0 score. The only goal really came by a Madzika shot from the point that got redeflected by Suoko in front of the net. And then it was pretty much just withstand the pressure that, the Whitecaps were putting on. First and third quarters, they got outshot 23-10, and in the second period is when Buffalo were able to capitalize 15-8. That's when they really were able to kind of let loose a bit, and then the rest of the way they were just, putting on the defense and locking it down. There weren't very many high opportune chances that the Buffalo Beauts gave up to the Whitecaps, but when there were, Ridgewell came up huge. She was great in this game, and little shout out to Summer Rae Dobson. Little pests in front of the net. The goaltender had the puck. The puck looked loose, but she definitely gave the goaltender who was laying on her back a couple extra shots, and you could tell that the Whitecaps weren't appreciative of it, but you need those kind of players to form a collective and a full-on, well-built team, and she's one of those pests on the ice for a good reason.
This is not the first time we've seen a goaltender for the Beauts kind of come in out of nowhere and step up. I mean, Ridgewell in her first official start, making 31 saves, and not only 31 saves, but getting a shutout. I mean, that's just incredible to really get your first real opportunity in net all season. We're pretty late into the season. This isn't, game 3, 4, 5 where she's finally getting her chance. This is pretty late in the year now, and to be kind of always ready and really get your first taste of a starting opportunity. And to be able to come up this big with 31 saves and a shutout is just, it's incredible what she's able to do. Like you said, the defense played really well in front of her, and oftentimes it seems, I'm still on a theory that I want proven, that when a different goalie other than your normal starter is in, your defense seems to step up, being a little bit, I'll say, scared to kind of play really kind of loose and free because it's not your normal goalie. So you really want to kind of be a little bit more protective of that goalie, but still 31 shots, 31 saves is not a small number. But like you said, a lot of those shots coming from the outside, but when she needed to step up, she was there. She did it, and just incredible to get your first real opportunity, your first start, and come away with the season's first shutout. Just really, really impressive opportunity.
Yeah, and I mentioned it when I thought it was a Saturday game, but the MGM breakup in the final minutes where the Whitecaps net was empty and they had 6 against 5, like I said, and she was able to quickly adjust her body to not deflect the shot, but get her stick on the other opponent's stick because it was a wide open net. Otherwise, there was no way Ridgway was going to be able to get across the net and make that saves. She saved the game and saved the victory there, and credit to her. But Phil, it was a huge weekend by the team. They played unbelievable. All I got to ask is, where has this been all year long? When they play free, and this kind of reminded me of what the Sabres looked like once they knew they were out of it last year, starting in March, where they went on that massive run. So hopefully this can be similar to what the Buffalo Sabres did. They go on a nice long run the rest of this year and have that momentum in the offseason, make all these additions, bring some players back, because like I said, only 4 players are going to be back guaranteed on 2-year deals that they signed this last offseason. So hopefully a lot of these players can come back, build this momentum into next year and carry that along and have a shot at the playoffs next year. But again, you're still technically alive, Phil. They're still alive in the playoffs with back-to-back. Like we said, they have to win all of their regulation games. There's 6 more to go. They got 2 down, 6 to go.
Yeah, and we made the point last podcast that it's pretty much the equivalent to what the Sabres were able to do last season, right? Where they, toward the end of the year, got the new coach. Obviously, it's the same coach, but it's the same situation where you're trying to build toward that next season. Any kind of positives you can take away from this season at this point are huge. Any kind of growing opportunities, like you said, hopefully they can keep a lot of this team together because they are finally starting to grow together. We've seen them develop throughout the year, especially these last few series. They're really starting to slowly put things together, and now it's all starting to kind of pay off in a big 2-game set win here against Minnesota that it's just kind of coming together, possibly too little too late. Like you said, they are still mathematically in the playoff hunt, so we will take that and make sure that we keep those chances going. But even if you're building toward next year, every little thing counts, so this is still a great kind of momentum shift toward the end of the season. If you finish this last set or last 6 games on a high and roll that into next season, it just means really great things for your future.
And thank you for not making us look completely insane by the last few series saying, hey, this team's looking better. Hey, this team's looking better. Because we were telling the truth. They were looking better. We weren't just trying to find positives in a show and bringing them up rather than talk negatives. We've given the negatives. We're not afraid to talk about the negatives, but at least we weren't insane looking by saying, hey, this team's on the right track. This team's looking better. They're making the right improvements. And it all came together in this weekend series. Again, yes, Minnesota was down one of their top forwards, and yes, they were down their starting goaltender. But again, you were a bottom-dwelling team that just came in and won both games on the road versus a team that's still trying to lock up a playoff spot and trying to solidify their seeding in the playoffs. So congrats to them, hats off, and just keep the momentum rolling when you face Montreal in Montreal next weekend. But Phil, BSC update, some scoring, still no giveaways or takeaways. I don't understand why some arenas do it and some arenas don't. They didn't do this at this weekend, but 8 points for me, 6.5 for you. Thank you, MGM.
Yeah, I'll take the 2 Newton in goals as well. Not terrible. Not terrible. I'm just happy they both scored. Good for us. We'll just put it that way.
Good for
and
us,
for the
yeah.
team.
And for the team. Mostly us, though. But we'll move on to the final segment here. Buffalo Sabres, 1 game to talk about, a Saturday series. Another game where I had to watch on Sunday morning because it was too late when I got home, and I didn't want to stay up and rewatch the whole first period, so I figured Sunday morning, let's watch it. But they took on the Sharks, 4-2 victory. Cousins, Power, Skinner, and Tuck each scored. UPL made 33 of 35 saves. Shots were 35-31 in favor of the Sharks. And Phil, the record is 28, 22, and 4 On the season, I'd say 17, 18 more wins in regulation to try to squeak into the playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, they needed a win. More than anything, they need to keep stringing these wins together. We've talked about it plenty of times as they kind of very slowly wind down the season. We're not in the home stretch yet, but we're getting there. And it's just all about stringing together as many wins as possible. Obviously, that is beyond obvious, but it's more about not dropping into any kind of losing streak. Any prolonged losing streak in your season is pretty much toast at this point. So any win you can continue to get is just massive at this point. This game, more than anything to me, was all about UPL getting back in between the net, in between the pipes. And it's just the difference he makes for this team is incredible at this point. I mean, it's not something we really saw coming out in the beginning of the year. And this is still nothing against Anderson or Comrie. I think both of them could play better if they were getting the consistent minutes, but at the same time, UPL is forcing them not to get those minutes because he's playing amazing. But the game and the way it went, I mean, the Sabres started out really well and then kind of fell pretty flat. I mean, 6 minutes left in the second period, the shots were 23-7 in favor of the Sharks, and I think at that point the score might have been 2-2. And it's 2-2 because your goalie is playing absolutely incredible and giving your offense and your team a chance to come back in a very close game and win. I mean, this is a game that the Sabres needed to win and should have won. The Sharks are not a great team this year. They should have been a little bit more dominant, but overall it was a pretty even game. But even that saying, I mean, again, the Sabres, to me, I know it's West Coast and they play a little bit different, but the Sabres should have been a little bit better in this one. But I mean, UPL keeping them in it and giving them a true opportunity to win. And that's just the difference a true number one goalie can make compared to the other ones that have recently played in net.
Yeah, like you said, he was making the massive saves early and late in this game to keep them in it. And the shot totals look like it does because the Sabres turned it on. Like you said, 6 minutes in, 23-7 in shots, and it was 2-2. It's pretty dang good for capitalizing on what you were able to do. It seemed like after the first 7 to 8 minutes where the Sabres were just all over the ice, it could have been like 3-0 from the jump. Jost hit the post, Tage hit the post. There were a lot of posts in this one, a lot of whiff shots early on where it could have been out of hand very early on, and it wasn't, but they were able to continue to battle. This is one of those ugly win games that you need to be able to do against a team that's far inferior to you, which again feels really weird to say when you're talking about the Buffalo Sabres being the more superior team, but the one pass that stands out to me was the Jeff Skinner pass from the point, finding a streaking Owen Power who just slides it between the goalie's 5-hole. He is gaining more and more confidence as the season goes on. He only scores on the West Coast and on the road games, apparently. I don't get it. He hasn't scored at home yet this season, but it's just these type of games where you need to be able to go in when you're not playing your best, go in when the opponents are, laying it down, where you're just not getting enough shots on net, where the other team is putting the shots on the net. You just need to be able to go in there and take over, and your best line needs to be able to perform when the time needs. And Tuck, great battle on the boards, win it, finds a wide open Skinner. I mean, I think it was Dahlin that had his arms up before the pass was even completed over to Jeff Skinner because he knew it was going to go in. And then credit to Alex Tuck and Zemgus Girgensson. The final minute, the forecheck they were able to put on, it ended up resulting in the Alex Tuck goal and the empty netter just to cap it off. But they were working their butts off. You could tell they definitely needed this win. And again, I don't know what it is, Phil, when they travel to the West Coast, but they go on winning streaks that they can't for some reason do at home. If this team had just won, maybe 5 more games at home, they'd be sitting in a playoff spot right now, but for some reason they can't win at home and they can only win on the West Coast.
And I think we also have to mention one of the most casual, unexciting is not a nice way to put it, but I guess we'll stick with casual coast-to-coast goals by Dylan Cozens I've ever seen in my life, as he just very calmly breezed past a bunch of people and then took a kind of awkward off-angle shot from the outside and scored. And it was just such a strange coast-to-coast type goal. I mean, normally when you think of those goals, you think of someone flying through, gunning it full speed, breaking through 3 defenders and coming up with some insane breakaway type goal, and instead he just kind of stayed on the outside, kept the puck the entire time, kept his head up, and just whipped it at the net and was able to beat the goalie 5-hole. And I loved it. It was just kind of a awkward, funny, really good goal, but a very strange one. But I mean, congrats to Cousins. It was obviously needed and a big goal for him. So still pretty fun way to get it. But like you said, they play really good on the West Coast for some reason, which is good to see because this team is normally very bad on West Coast trips. So it's good to see that they are able to find those winning streaks. If they could do it at home a little bit more, it'd be nice. But I'll take the wins any way we can get them.
So, Phil, we'll go over the BSC update here. You put in 4.5 points. I put up 12.5. Woo woo! Thank you. Are you making any changes to your team, or are you going to stick with what you got?
Yeah, there's no secondary scoring for this team that I can add at least. So
that's fair.
I mean, Quinn had another one off the post. So I've been keeping a close eye on him. He seems to be playing a little bit better as of late with more confidence, but no one's really stepping up in the secondary department to really make any exciting moves.
Well, you can't add Quinn anymore because I already have him anyway. So.
Oh, you still have that's what I'm talking about with our team, though. I mean, this is the problem with the Sabres. They're not as deep as some of these other leagues that we're watching.
That is true. They're still a growing boy of a team, I guess.
They'll get there.
But we'll move on to the wild card watch, which, again, I'm going to keep saying this so often until they establish themselves like the Buffalo Bills did, where they're just constantly good. It's just weird after 11 years that this team's actually a threat for the playoffs. But 7th place, Pittsburgh, 55 games, 63 points. New York Islanders have overtaken Washington for the 8th place, 59 games, 63 points. Washington, 58 games, 62 points. Florida is tied with them, 59 games played, 62 points. Buffalo way down at 54 games played, 60 points. So they're 5 back of Florida in games played, 4 back of Washington in games played, 5 back of New York Islanders in games played, and Pittsburgh 1 game back. It's just, they have so many games in hand where they control their own fate at this moment. It's all in their hands. If they want to be able to make this playoff push, they need to win those 4 to 5 games that they have in hand to keep jumping these teams, keep moving up the ladder. And it doesn't get any easier with Toronto coming into town on Tuesday. If you can upset them and get the 2 points, you're going to be looking even better as like I said, the schedule doesn't get any easier as they move forward. A lot of Eastern Conference teams that they're going to be able to face, and a lot of them are at the top tier of the standings.
But I mean, those are the games that are going to make or break a team like this. I mean, this is a team that is growing. These are the games that you want to be in. These are the games that you have to win. And I know we keep trying to push for them to make playoffs, but you got to get to playoffs in order to make playoffs. And even just being this deep into the season, like you just mentioned, in the playoff position, trying to push for playoffs, that's part of this whole experience, is learning how to win these extremely tough games against top talented teams just to make playoffs. I mean, this is still a huge growing opportunity for this team. You have to go out and beat the best in order to make playoffs, and a lot of this end of the season is going to come down to that. But, I mean, looking at the wild card standings, obviously Pittsburgh, like you said, in 7th with only 55 games played. They're not far away from the Sabres, but they're the ones that are kind of pushing a little bit higher. The other ones right in front of them, Buffalo has plenty of games in hand, but even Detroit is hanging on there with 55 games played and 60 points. They're not far behind the Sabres, so they're another one interesting. Again, those games in hand are pretty crazy looking right now to see the Sabres have so many with some of those teams, and then Pittsburgh and Detroit kind of hanging right with them. But keep winning. That's all we can say, is just keep winning, keep making games interesting, and no matter what happens, just keep it entertaining, which they have done so far pretty much the entire season.
So we'll move on to our final segment here. We didn't have it last week because there was nothing really to talk about, and the Sabres got crushed against the Flames. So we didn't feel it was. Yeah, it was. We were the MVPs of last week, but we'll move on to the MVP. Like we said, we're going to do every Monday show. The MVP runs from Monday to Sunday, so we're going to crown one. And there was a lot of nominees. I think some of the nominees, obviously, Dhane Smith was looking to repeat his MVP, not just in the NLL, but for the BSC. Brad McCulley, I think, was worthy of one too, but I think we got to give it to Emma Newtonen. I mean, 2 goals on Saturday, including the game winner on the power play. 5 shots on net during the series. Played both the power play and the penalty kill. She played physical when she needed to, because Minnesota was getting physical as well, trying to stifle the speed that the Buffalo Beauts had. I think she is deserving of the MVP, and congrats to being the second ever BSC MVP for this podcast.
Do I get an extra 200-point
No,
boost?
you don't. You do not. Thank you, though. But even if you did, I would still be winning.
I know, but I'd still take it.
I'm sure you would.
And I would have had Dhane Smith on the other one, so that 400-point boost.
And then I would just make a comeback late.
Yeah, I feel like with you mainly determining the MVP, you would just start picking all your players.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But congrats
I've
to
given
Newton.
you two,
I mean,
so two to me.
she does deserve it. I mean, it's really great to... I know we've had as many positives as we could possibly eke out of the Buffalo Beauts season so far, but it's really great to finally talk about 2 back-to-back victories. It's huge, and just have her score 2 goals. And like you said, she's a big physical force. She's incredible with what she can do. She is very clearly obvious on the ice in a very good way. You can see her out there as a physical force. You can see her out there with her stick skate handling abilities, her skating abilities. Everything that she does out there just looks incredible. So for her to score 2 and finally get things kind of rolling, hopefully this is good news for her and the rest of the season.
Congrats to our second ever BSC MVP, Emma Newtonen. It's a well-deserved, great weekend series by her and great weekend series by the Buffalo Beauts. So, Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this show before we can shut down my struggling brain and I can go to bed and relax a bit?
No, you can take off.
That's good, because on our next show, we got the Beauts versus Montreal preview. Once again, they're still alive. Keep fighting it and keep trying to spoil. No matter how slim the possibility of playoffs are, you are still alive until you're not alive anymore, and then you go to true spoiler. But we got that. Then we got the Sabres-Toronto series, which is a Tuesday game. Hopefully they can pull out a victory there and keep moving up the ladders. So it's a light show, but hopefully we got some important things to talk about. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Go. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.